you know, one of the reasons why I joined Pitchmasters was really to be able to connect with like-minded guys and guys who are where I want to be.
Yeah.
I found you and Robbie both on Twitter. I was like, why not? I've never been a part of one of these communities. I think it can really help me long term. So it's going to be, I'm definitely going to use those that level of care and that level of urgency within my calls. I think I can definitely fit it in toward the back as my kind of roll to close area. Um, but it's kind of they want us to kind of stick within a certain framework, if you will. Um, and that's one of the challenges I've really kind of had is our job's just booking these demos, and we kind of have to go off dialing for dollars and numbers and hitting your numbers and all that good stuff. So I like sales much more on like a personable level, kind of like what you do, where you're really building those relationships with clients and things like that. So, um, but it's all part of the process of getting into the game.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Now that makes sense. And I know it's tough when you've got a framework you got to work within.
Yeah. But like I said, join the community so I can get some other ideas and other tools under my belt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not ever talking against an organizational structure, but when I've been in positions where I was given a framework, I tested the limits of it as far as I could.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
heard pushback once, and that's when I started emailing people without permission to email them.
Yeah.
But other than that, when I went off sort of like a script sales wise, or I just started doing it my own way,
Yeah.
as long as you're producing numbers and promoting the right message that your company wants promoted, that's all they care about at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, looks like we got.
Anybody else got anything? Um,
Ali, did you come off? You got something for us?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I totally agree with the gatekeeper approach with the assistants. I think the other thing too is like you got to do it over time too, right? So in a couple of conversations, they'll start to give you bits and pieces about like maybe family or like something that's coming up. Um, I, I think the assistants are like one of the underutilized kind of resources for us because they know everything that's happening in the office, right?
yeah,
So might not be their boss, they might connect you with someone else. And Sam, like I've been where you are, like with having your hands tied with the process. Like sometimes what I try to do is so you can't control what you can kind of use in terms of a channel, like you have to call them, but you can control how much background you do, right? So whether it's a
Hmm.
mom and pop shop putting something on their website or their social media, I mean, you got to creep a little bit
Yep.
and maybe use that in the conversation. But the other thing that's helped me as well is like, it's just like, all the objections they're going to have, hit that up like right away, right? So like, I know it's Christmas time, you're probably winding down. To Cameron's point, maybe you're getting at a high level of touch, or maybe create like a sense of urgency, like a constraint, like the price is going to increase in the new year or something like that.
Hmm.
But if you take all the excuses up front, then they're going to have a conversation with you at some point as well. But
Yeah.
I feel your pain, man, because it's hard, right? Like they're not letting you do certain things because all they want you to do is hit your number. So
Yeah. And that's,
it's tough.
yeah, I knew that going in, like the nature of my position and the nature of getting into a SaaS sales role, it's, the entry level is going to be hitting the number, hitting the number. So that's kind of that weed out that they have for the position. And that's why like I said, I took it because I wanted the challenge and I feel like, do this for 4 or 5 months and then see what happens after that because then they have a bunch of relationships with other different SaaS companies if I want to go the SaaS route, or I can go, into a completely different sales vertical if I want. But yeah, I mean that's one thing that I've really tried to do is build that relationship, especially with the gatekeepers, because people, overlook them all the time.
yeah, they do. And you brought up a good point too, about the objections that they have and their excuses.
Yeah.
Everybody you talk to, unless they're just the perfect buyer, they're going to have excuses or objections.
Yep.
I just accept them, say, okay, great. Like, just acknowledge that I hear what their objection is. I write it down. And
Hmm.
then I study what I do every day. I know how it's going to help people. So I know what this objection is and how I can overcome it. I don't directly sort of talk about that objection, but through my conversation, I just tailor what I'm saying to how this objection is not going to be a big deal in the future or how it can be overcome. So basically an indirect approach to addressing the objection.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like going and shining a super big spotlight on
Yeah.
isolating and identifying it. It's much more in a subtle way.
Yeah, so
I like that. Yeah.
we can talk about it later in the call. And then
Yeah.
throughout the call, while I'm asking the other questions or we're talking about other product features or service features, I'm indirectly hitting on these objections. And by the end of it, when I say, all right, now would you like to address these? If I even go to that route, they don't want to talk about it anymore because they say, all right, you've hit on that.
Yep, for sure. Are you, in terms of how you're qualifying your prospects and your clients, is it much more of an in-depth? I'm sure it's much more of an in-depth process. If you're only working with like 10 or 11, you have a lot more time for background research. Yeah.
So I haven't put this in yet. I'm going to drop the ebook that I wrote, and I'm going to keep sort of elaborating on that, going more in depth with it. But I do what I call 3x3 prospecting, which is I take out a note card and I write down their name and I spend 3 minutes. I type their name into Google and then I put a stopwatch on my phone and I find 3 conversation pieces that I can have with them. One about their business, one about them personally, and one about something that just stands out to me.
Yep.
So
awesome.
through doing that, I can be able to qualify them. And that gives me more than enough information than I need. Also, if I can't find those 3 things in 3 minutes, I put them at the back of my list. Because you can find it, it just isn't standing out to you. So you're just not ready to make that phone call.
Yeah, that makes sense. We use Outreach via Salesforce, so it's easy to like snooze tasks and stuff. But dude, yeah, that's gold. I mean, being able to do that 3x3, I never even really thought of that. So I'm definitely going to use that next week.
So no, that's been my biggest thing with prospecting is just doing that. I use that as the framework to create my I call it my stalker profile. It's a client profile, but it looks like a serial killer with their manila folders. So I do that, but I'll drop pictures of how I've done mine and everything so you can see.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
George, the 3, one of them is business related, something that their business is doing. So I usually go to the news tab for that and see if there's any news article that's recent within the last 3 months that is positive. I will write that down. If it's negative and it directly relates to how I can affect them, that's my number 1 entry point, my golden ticket, but it's usually positive. Rarely is it negative. The other one's something personal about them. So like say I'm a big Virginia Tech fan. My whole family's gone there. If I see on their LinkedIn or anywhere that they went to Virginia Tech, I'll write that down. Or just anything personal about them, what their hobbies are, what their interests are, any awards that they've won personally, or if they just got a promotion, I'll write that. And then the third one's just anything that really stands out that doesn't fit in a category, but it's say they just move locations, or I can find that their company won an award for the 3rd straight year. I'll just write that down. So I know a track record and it's a talking point. And then those talking points also go into my email sequence. Once I get to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th email, I'll have a generic first line that I leave blank. And it's usually one of the talking points. I'll relate it to that talking point and tie my value proposition into it. Hey, I saw you guys just did this. You're expanding. Here's how I can help.
Cool. Do you have any sort of equivalents for B2C stuff? This is my struggle. I'm trying to find people that I've got a suspect list. They raise their hand on Facebook to an ad.
Yeah. And
then they'll give me their phone number and they'll give me their email. But like I mentioned on the Slack channel, sometimes, 75% will go dark after that.
Yeah. And you're doing insurance, right?
Tax resolution.
Yeah. So that you're using their Facebook. You've got their Facebook information and you can look at them there.
Right.
I'm trying to think of how I would resolve that because mine is somewhat B2C. It's a lot of individual people who own like one property or looking to buy one property. So it's a somewhat customer and they're not too heavy on Google.
Right.
But I'll look up anything, just anything that I can find about them to get me in the door, because the 3x3 is basically 1, so I feel comfortable about talking to them when I can get them on the phone. And 2, it's I know a background of them so I can show that I've done my homework. and they know that I put in time to talk to them.
George, if
Yes.
you're finding them on Facebook, what's the struggle? I guess in terms of Cam's like 3x3 approach. If you have their Facebook profile, I would imagine a lot of their information is there.
No, so Facebook will sandbox you to the on the information that they're willing to provide to you.
Okay.
It's not like a panoptical view of their profile. They will give you that view if they actually respond to it or comment on the ad. I can look at their profile, and that's helped me. For example, we're a veteran-owned business, and I noticed that the prospect was a veteran. So I'm chatting with her on Messenger, and I'm like, "Hey, we offer discounts for veterans," and she's like, "I'm a veteran," and I'm like, "Yep, I know that. That's why I mentioned it." And she goes, "Cool," and then she signed up.
Yeah. So you just don't get that information on a lot of them, knows what you're saying.
No, actually, that's probably it's probably going to be part of an updated piece of our strategy, because I didn't realize that till recently that the commenters give you access to Facebook will give you access to their profile. So we're going to encourage people to respond to the ad, and then that way we can do the 3x3 prospecting.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would put a direct call to action, like or respond for something that you can give them that's not going to make a big difference to you, but just a reason for them to like or comment on it. Are you able to see what their profession is? Because I know some people you can see on their Facebook profile, even if you're not friends.
It depends on their privacy setting.
So if you can, one thing I would say to do, and that I've used actually in the past, is I'll get their profession. So say they work at Kaiser Permanente and I know they're an account executive, I'll go to Glassdoor and check what the average salary is. You might be able to make some general assumptions through
Sure.
doing that.
Yeah, for sure. That's an excellent idea.
And I would just, because obviously you have different tax solutions for people in different tax brackets. If you see someone's making 180K versus 40K, you could approach it a little differently.
For sure. Salary is obviously a big piece of what we do, or part of the it plays into the strategies that we recommend. But the people that my clients are generally not necessarily looking for tax strategy. They're looking for resolution of their tax debts. So they owe tax debt.
Yeah.
Or have some sort of a tax problem that they can't fix on their own.
So generically speaking, are you looking at people in the lowest tax bracket?
Not necessarily. It's all over the board.
Okay.
But generally, if you're broke, you can get better relief options.
Yeah.
Than if you're making 150.
Yeah. So you could, one thing that I'm thinking of, because I do on the side, I work with a company that does that for legal bill reviews, and they use Facebook ad strategies. Basically, if you have an in-house counsel, but they charge you by the hour, they help you save money through just doing an outside audit of it.
Okay.
And we would sort of pigeonhole and just have a generic cost saving strategy that once we know what category someone fits in, whether they're making this much money per year or this much money per year, we have a cost saving strategy that we can talk about with them, and it's completely different, and there's different language around it. So you're more tailored. I think that could be used for your 3x3, is if you can figure out where they're at financially or where they're at in their life, and you create a cost saving strategy or some sort of strategy that you can tailor your approach towards.
As the giveaway on the call to action, or
no, when you first approach them to create a higher conversion rate.
Could you elaborate on that? I'm not following you.
I'm trying to think how I want to word this. So if you know someone's in a certain tax bracket, you can generally assume that they're going to be having different tax benefits from what you can provide them.
For sure.
If you can sort of pigeonhole them prior to talking with them, I think that's where you should go with your 3x3, is trying to put them in a certain category and having a certain cost savings or tax benefit approach to each of them. Because I'm assuming, are you approaching people in the lowest tax bracket who are broke, who can have a higher tax benefit? Are you approaching them differently than you're approaching someone who's making 200K a year?
I don't know that information going into it. So I'm not, the approach is generic at this point until, when I get them on a call or I'm able to messenger them, then I can sort of start to explore.
Yeah.
Generally I don't have those details at my fingertips.
Okay. Yeah. So I think maybe that approach where you look up on Glassdoor what their income is, that might be a way to do it.
That's a great idea.
Test out different
use that.
strategies. What did somebody ask?
I think I'll lead through in a question there, George, for you. I don't know if that is something.
Looking at it. I'm answering now. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good stuff. And anybody else have anything? Gaurav, how, I know you ran into a struggle with your deal a little bit this week where they were pushing back. What happened with that?
Hey, Bobby. Yeah. My client is demanding one, and as I said in the group, they are wanting too many variables in the contract. And as you know, in the B2B scenario, again, I'm very tight with the governance process of the company. So there's little room that I have in terms of how many variables I can sort of allow the client to put in. That's where we are. So I'm kind of pushing back and waiting to see what they will do. I've kind of pushed back on another meeting because I know they are in as much of a hurry as I am to close the deal. They're not talking to anybody else, that I'm reasonably sure. So that kind of plays to my advantage. I know there is no competition breathing down my neck. So I'm just leaving it open for the next week.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah. But yeah, it comes down to the negotiation, right? Who blinks first in these kind of scenarios.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you push back, wait for that answer. Don't make that first move.
Yep. Right. That's right. It's a 3-year deal, so it's a bit complicated. It involves about 60 to 70 people working for the next 3 years. That's quite a bit of responsibility. So I want to make sure that I go in fully aware of what I'm getting into.
Are there any intangibles that you can trade away, Gaurav?
Sorry?
Are there any intangibles that you can trade away that would be valuable to the client, but not so necessarily expensive for you?
Yeah, so actually we have gone past that stage. I mean, there are a lot of those things that I've already given in to them. Right? They said, okay, can you add in a little bit of this service, and some of the value added stuff that I've already built in. What they're asking now is more flexibility. So the kind of business where we are in, I need to have at least 1 year of visibility, right, in terms of planning, because we roll out a lot of systems and services. I can't sort of deliver properly on the SLAs that the customer demands if I don't have visibility, or I need to, if the customer says that my revenue will change every 2 months or 3 months, right? There is no way that we can sort of run the project in that kind of variability. So that's why the pushback, right? I'm saying at least
can you use historical data of theirs to model something?
Sorry?
Can you use some of their historical data to model something?
You're absolutely right. So the thing is, the company's just been in business for about 6 months, right? So they don't have much of historical data. It's a new telco, right? So they've just launched their mobile services. They're growing because they started with 0. They don't know how the competition will react. So that's why they're a little wary of committing on a 3-year contract. Right?
Can you commit to a rev share? Can you work something like that out?
So rev share in a big market, yes, it works. Brunei, where I am, the total population of the country is about 400,000 people, right? So the market is too small to go for revenue share kind of a services. So that's where I am stuck. I can't, though it's a good idea, but then revenue share is way too risky.
Are they concerned over the length of the contract? Is that the main concern?
No, they're not they're not actually discussing on the length of they want to lock in for the 3 years.
Yeah.
What they want to do is they want to know that, let's say their business goes southwards in 3 months, they want to bring down the cost accordingly. Whereas what I am pushing for is to have that visibility for at least 12 months. Because 3 months and carrying the people is just too difficult to have this kind of fluctuations.
What does visibility mean in your
revenue? Basically, the revenue that I get out of the contract. So it's a monthly billing contract.
Yeah.
Monthly, I bill them $200,000 across a period of time. So what I'm telling them is after 12 months, we look at the various parameters that we have that we are delivering on, and if your numbers are going southwards, I decrease my cost and passing on some of the benefit to you. If your numbers increase, you add more subscriber, then my numbers go because I need to deliver accordingly, right? Whereas they are saying that they want to sort of bring in a matrix which has multiple parameters like SLAs, like the subscriber count and all of that, which makes it extremely difficult for me to sort of visualize how my revenue stream will look like, right?
Yeah.
And in this country where I am, I mean, ramping up and down of resources of people that we hire is very difficult, right? The labor laws just don't allow you to have that kind of flexibility, right? So that's where the challenge is.
Makes sense. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, that's a tricky spot to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would just hold them sort of to the fire. Say, this is, in order to get optimal results, what you've probably done, this is how it needs to be structured. We can be a little bit flexible with it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to allow them to try to take a lot from you. I'm trying to think without knowing.
Especially because I know that customer, I mean, I know their spending behavior. I know what they've spent in some of the other services, right, where they have not done this. So it's not about the spending power. It's just that one of the decision makers kind of have this built into his head that he wants to bring in this visibility and maybe show to his board that, you know, he's brokered a deal like this. So that's why I'm pushing back. Gotcha.
Have you thought about offering him anything up front, sort of a discount up front, and then tacking it onto the back end?
So, as I said, this is already done, right? So initially he never brought this in till the last minute, till we were just about to close it. And then just before closing, he just brought this in. Right? All this while he was just discussing all the other things. So I pretty much maxed out on what I can give him.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, I would just say no and let him blink.
Exactly. Yeah. So he called me for a meeting on Friday. I said, no, I'm busy. So I just want to make him think, because I know his strategy is usually to call on a Friday evening, very late Friday evening, and drop some bombshell and then spoil my weekend. And then again call on Monday morning. So as I said, it's a bit of nerve game.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Gaurav, keep us updated, man.
Absolutely. I'll do that. Yeah.
And if we can help, let us know.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, y'all. With that, we've been going about an hour, so we will call it for the morning. It is great to see y'all continue to do great things. We'll be posting more in the Slack community, like Ali said. Engagement. Let's just keep chatting, keep dropping. We can create a new channel for just random talks if we want to, so you can talk about whatever, even if it's not directly sales related, just to build those connections. And we'll keep everybody posted about what's coming next, and there will be more next week and probably more this weekend, and we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, and Steven, I know you just joined. We'll drop all this in the YouTube. The beginning of it was very meaty. The end.
Good. I'll catch it then.
Awesome.
So I really enjoyed the 2 minutes that I was here.
We're glad you're here. All right, y'all. Everybody have a good safe Saturday.